And actually, if small and medium businesses thrive, then the whole country thrives.
Hello, and welcome to Settling Up with GoCardless.
No one went into business to pay their taxes. No one went into business to, run a payroll. They went into business to fix cars, to make floral displays, whatever it might be is their business that they run. Not only the kind of variable recurring payments, but also looking at the size of transactions that could happen. There's a world that we see in the future where imagine we could do, much bigger size transactions to help people with paying their payroll through open banking, for example. Is what customers are telling us, what accountants are telling us, what the market is telling us is that customers don't want any more apps. They want as many things in the same place.
Hello, and welcome to Settling Up with GoCardless, where we settle the score with leaders in payments, getting their honest opinions with hot takes and no chargebacks. Today, for this episode, I'm joined by Gordon Stuart from Sage. Welcome to the podcast, Gordon. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do at Sage.
Thank you so much for having me. So, as I said, I'm Gordon Stuart. I'm Senior Vice President of FinTech and Embedded Services here at Sage. And it's my job to make sure we've got a forward-thinking strategy about how we solve movement of money problems for our customers.
Great. Well, today we're going to get Gordon's thoughts on why buying a way to success isn't always the answer to building a powerful third-party ecosystem and product portfolio. And we're also going to hear from Gordon about finding the right partners for the 2 million businesses that Sage works with. So, Gordon, just to kick things off, we're going to start with our first game of the episode, which is approved, pending or declined. And it's our payments version of yay or nay, if you like. So I'm going to throw at you some industry terms, concepts and ideas, and then you can give me one of three answers. So either it's approved, it's got the green light, you think it's a great idea, full steam ahead. Maybe it's pending, it's something that you think needs a little bit more work. So it's got the amber light, it's promising, not quite there yet. Or declined, red light, don't go ahead with this, it's a terrible idea, okay? So the first industry trend then is agentic commerce, approved, pending or declined.
So I would say pending, and only because I think there's an awful lot of opportunity in agentic commerce, but I think we're still quite far away from it really being in the hands, especially of small businesses who we support at Sage, of it making a real difference for them. And like I said, I think the opportunity is there, but I still think we need refinement. And I also think, my own personal opinion, agentic commerce, that phrase, I don't think really lands with customers. So I think we're gonna have to work a new way about how we describe what is essentially digitizing and using agents to progress that workflow. So pending for now, but I'm sure that'll be an approved in the not too distant future.
Yes, I think you're right. That phrase maybe needs a bit more work. It raises more questions than it answers, probably, doesn't it?
I would agree, yeah.
Okay, next one then is product-led growth. So starting with self-serve and then getting customers to move to a paid model. Would you say that's approved, pending or declined?
I think very much approved. I think it's really important for customers to be able to test things and make sure the product actually works for them. But I think it's also what we're hearing more and more for customers is they want to be able to make decisions for themselves. They want to be able to do that in their workflow. And I've experienced this as a consumer myself, where you can test something out and actually see if it adds the value. You're then actually happy to then go to a full paid version. So absolutely approved from my point of view.
Okay, green lighted then.
Green light.
Excellent. What about embedded finance? Approved, pending or declined?
Couldn't be a bigger approved from my perspective. One of the real big things that we see when we speak to small businesses, speak to the industry, is access to finance is such a barrier for businesses. And when we've in different sluggish economies around the world, the way to grow that is often through small and medium businesses. And embedded finance, I think, and we think at Sage, is a very, very important topic that we're really trying to drive through to our customers. So you can have that in capital letters, approved.
That's a no-brainer for you then.
Absolutely,
okay.
Absolutely.
Finally then, generative AI for product teams. Approved, pending or declined?
I'm going to go approved again here. So I think this is really, really important in terms of the pace that we can do software delivery, making sure we bring in different ideas, AI pair programming. It's made such a difference for us in terms of our the pace that we can deliver at, the accuracy, and actually allowing our engineers to become analysts as well as engineers. So I think it's critical, and that's the way the industry is going, and the productivity we can gain in the industry and us as a business is absolutely fantastic. So again, a big fat approved from my perspective.
Okay, great. Well, I'm going to throw at you a few more personal ones now, so we can get to know you a little better.
Sure.
Seeing as you have global in your job title, I think you probably do quite a bit of travelling. So this first one, I think you'll probably have a strong opinion on. Turning up late at the airport or at the last minute for your flight, approved, pending, or declined?
This used to be a declined when I didn't used to travel too much. I was always get to the airport 2 hours before, make sure I've got time to get settled. And the more and more travel that I've done, that's very much turned into I get there at the absolute last minute. And sometimes actually I'm kind of pushing it a little bit too much. So I dropped my daughter off at her gymnastics practice a couple of weeks ago and we were running slightly late and I think I made the plane by about 5 minutes. So yeah, I think I've pushed it as far as it can go now, but I'm very much now, as close to the wire as I can just because of the amount of travel that I do. So I would approve that about getting there as late as possible.
And you get that adrenaline kick now.
You do, exactly. It's a bit of a rush. It kind of keeps it fun. When you get on the same flights all the time, it's good to think, oh, might not make this flight, but I maybe won't be so bullish if I miss a flight one day.
Well, yeah, your opinion might change then. Okay, what about rewatching films or favourite series? Approved, pending, or declined?
So I'd say pending. And I think as I'm getting a little bit older, I used to actually quite enjoy watching same things over and over. I still remember being a little lad and watching The Lion King about 10 times in a row when it came out. But now there's so much out there in terms of all the different streaming services, kind of like access to international films. I really try and watch as many different things as I can. So, but there's still the odd film that comes on, Forrest Gump, something like that, where if it's on or I spot it there, I just have to watch it again.
Yeah, okay. I think I can be on board with that, actually. Okay, what about hitting the snooze button more than once? Approved, pending, or declined?
Declined. You've got to be disciplined about when the snooze button kind of appears and just get yourself up. So it's something that I think we all love to kind of have that extra lie in, but every time that we do, it's actually not beneficial to us. So be disciplined about when you put on your alarm and try and resist the snooze button would be is the approach that I take.
Okay, a lesson for us all there. My final one then, and you might have to provide a bit of context for this, but Greggs sausage roll, approved, pending, or declined?
So absolutely approved. So I'm from Newcastle upon Tyne, the birthplace of the Greggs bakery chain, and I'm a huge advocate of the sausage roll and the vegan sausage roll as it was. So yeah, absolutely approved from my point of view. Whether I'm out traveling in the UK, there's always a Greggs there, whether on a motorway services, and actually even at the airport now in Newcastle, you can get a Greggs as soon as you land. So that's it's always makes me feel like I'm at home whenever I see a Greggs. So big approved for me.
There's comfort to be found in a Greggs sausage roll, basically. Great. Well, thank you for playing approved, pending, or declined. So, Gordon, you're responsible for the third-party ecosystem and product portfolio at Sage, as we heard in the introduction. For those of our audience who aren't familiar with that, what does that really mean?
Yeah, so I think just to give a bit of context about Sage as a business, so we essentially invented the category of accounting software 44 years ago here in the UK, and we've grown to be a business which supports millions of customers around the world. But as part of that, there's obviously huge numbers of other software which needs to plug in the way people run their businesses. So my accountability is to make sure from a FinTech perspective, anything to do with the movement of money, that we've got the right strategy in place, the right partners in place to make sure that we're serving our customers in the best way that we can. So we work with a number of different partners in different geographies to be able to find solutions for those customers. It's a very exciting job and one that I'm genuinely very passionate about and find it super interesting because supporting small and medium businesses as we do, I get so much fulfillment out of that. When I go and see a mechanic or a florist or an art creative and we're helping them run their business, it genuinely makes me feel like we're doing a good thing.
Yeah, it sounds like a really rewarding role then.
Absolutely, because when you think about what drives a business, it's the money that comes into that business, it's the money they have to pay out to their suppliers or to their employees or whoever it might be, and be able to create value for them and productivity and efficiency and helping their businesses run and grow genuinely fills me with sort of like pride and pleasure. So it's something I get a real kick out about and I'm so passionate about. So it's great to have a job in a company such as Sage that lines up with that fulfillment as well.
And it's so interesting to hear just how long Sage has been around, actually. It does feel like a really long-standing UK brand, I have to say.
Yeah, no, and we're really proud of the fact that we've been able to, through a transition from being desktop-based software, moving into the cloud and now into AI, we've got such a history in that, and there's a real trust both internally in the business and in the market that we are the experts, and we've been able to grow globally through that time as well to support businesses all around the world. And also the fact that Sage was born and bred in Newcastle, my hometown, gives it an even more special feeling. Get a little bit of goosebumps thinking about that, because it's such an important part of what we do in Newcastle, and we're extremely proud to still be headquartered in the Northeast, even though we're this global company supporting millions of businesses around the world.
Yeah, well, we're definitely going to come on to talk a bit more about that, actually, location and all that kind of thing. Okay, so when you're thinking about Sage's customers, what are their biggest challenges and pain points, and how are you trying to solve them?
Yeah, so I think, we spend a lot of time speaking to our customers, looking at market research, speaking to accountants, the influencers of those customers.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of key themes that really kind of come back time and time again. One of them is around cash flow, especially money coming into the business. So obviously, if you run a business and your money's coming in late or not coming in at all, that's a serious problem for you running your business. So we're looking to provide capabilities about how do businesses get paid quicker, get paid on time, chase up late payments, and making sure that reconciles back into their ledger so they can understand their cash flow, which kind of comes into the second piece, which is cash flow. So often businesses can have a great business model, but if they're working with bigger companies, with companies who've got different payment terms, if you're not getting paid 30, 60, 90 days after you've done some work, cash flow can be a real issue. So we're looking to make sure that our software helps understand their cash flow position, understand what taxes they have to pay, but also start to then enable them to have access to short-term, long-term finance. Not that we provide that, but we work with partners to provide that capability to make sure that they can help manage their cash flow, because these are the things that put small and medium businesses out of business if they're kind of run out of cash. But it's also even things actually where businesses have got balance sheet assets. So they might be sitting on money which could actually be working harder for them through savings, through their bank. So again, it's not us providing capabilities. It's all about us providing the information so they can make informed decisions. But it really is around money in, cash flow, money out. They're the big things that kind of make or break a business that we can help with through our software.
Let's dig into this sort of ecosystem strategy then and understand a bit more about that. So there are three main models. Probably one that people might have heard of is the walled garden ecosystem, right? Which is one that is often Apple uses it, but we also might have heard of an open system. That's the one prioritized by Microsoft. So can you tell me a bit about those three main approaches and how they differ?
Yeah, no, and I think there's, there is different approaches to how you kind of do it. And there is some organizations, and I'm not going to name names in terms of, they've got their set tech stack. They want all their products and services to kind of work together. And there's real advantages by doing that, because if you've got a strong customer base who's very loyal to what you do and you deliver them a really good experience, they are going to buy those services through you, and you've got an opportunity to grow your kind of commercial side of your business. When you look at the kind of open ecosystem, which is more the place that we play, we're all about who are the experts in the different categories. We know that we're the experts in accounting, financial management, HR, and payroll, but we also know that we're not the experts in other places. So our open ecosystem is, how do we take the capabilities that we're the true experts in and make sure they show up in the right places, and then we partner with other organizations who are those other experts. So, and there's also the kind of a conflicting approach, aligned approach between somewhere in the middle as well, in terms of being a fully closed ecosystem, being fully open. And we're definitely more on the open side in terms of the way that we're looking to support our customers in the industry.
Yeah, that's really interesting to hear. And well, look, how has the approach to ecosystems changed then, do you think, as we've moved to that cloud era of technology and computing?
And I think what we used to see in kind of like the desktop world is, there'd be software that get released every 6 months, every year, every 2 years. And there was actually a whole ecosystem built around that, in terms of there was a lot of support required to change integrations, move to the latest versions of software. And I think at the time, you'd have to have a real investment if you were going to have integrated software. And actually, there's an expectation that integration would last for a long time. So we've always had a very dynamic ecosystem with a lot of other partners, both in terms of those who resell our software as well as integrate to it. And we had a lot of success with that. But as we've moved to cloud computing, everything being available in the browser, the ability to integrate more and more applications into our platform, into our ecosystem, has really benefited customers, because rather than generic integrations that we had in the past, you can get very specific into industry verticals that someone might be in, a micro vertical. If you're in healthcare and doing something very specific, there's going to be an application out there. And API technology has allowed then to integrate those systems, allow the data to flow. So it's really cloud computing and everything being in the browser has opened up this huge opportunity. And what we look to the future is with the way AI is going, that's only going to enhance more and more. And we're at the forefront of that in terms of our development to make sure that we can integrate AI agents of our own into other people's platforms and vice versa. We want people to build together with us at Sage because we know that's actually what's going to deliver the best outcomes for our customers.
I mean, that must be really exciting for you in your role, knowing that there's this kind of natural progression where the next piece of technology, whatever it is, comes in and you kind of, innovate along with it.
I think that is definitely part of the fun in terms of actually new opportunities that come up. If you have a kind of closed ecosystem, or if you're still operating in a world that doesn't engage and embed with other suppliers, your ability to act fast and create solutions for those customers kind of isn't there. So we're always looking for new opportunities, new partnerships, and also new technologies that we can drive forward. But I'm always really proud of the technical teams that we've got at Sage in terms of our ability to think forward and actually get ahead of the curve. We've done some amazing stuff in terms of releasing our kind of AI digital assistant into our kind of products already. Got tens of thousands of customers who are using it, and we can actually then see and learn from those customers to think what else might build into our ecosystem as well. So we've done some great collaboration with Microsoft and Amazon to be able to forward those technologies, and it's a very, very exciting time to be in the industry.
And it's interesting, you say there you get that feedback from your customers, so I guess immediately what works for them, what doesn't, and then you can tweak, right?
No, exactly. And I think one of the things that we really pride ourselves on is speaking to our customers, speaking to accountants who often use our products, speaking to the resellers in the ecosystem, and also some of our platform partners who we work with, because it's all about the customer at the end of the day. It's like, how do we support that customer? How do we help them run their business and provide them the tools and technology to be successful? And then obviously there's a part of that about how we're going to be successful in our business, but it's only through really listening to the customer that you get to those commercial outcomes as well as the kind of customer-led outcomes as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, look, now across so many parts of our lives, businesses start out as one thing and then gradually add more and more services, I guess, to their offering. I mean, a prime example of that would be Uber. Obviously started out essentially as a taxi service and now a food delivery company. You can buy train tickets through their platform. So I guess my question to you is, what do you think of this trend towards more and more embedded services?
So I think for us at Sage, it's very, very important because what we're seeing, we've done an awful lot of research recently, and what we're seeing is actually as cloud has evolved, having several applications on your phone has evolved, people are looking for different capabilities for a long time of things they can do digitally before they didn't do. And Uber's a great example of that. Was pretty much the last thing that I used to have cash for was a taxi. And then Uber came along, and obviously the kind of other suppliers, Lyft and others who supply things, that's then taken that away. But what we've really seen now is a trend towards consumers and small businesses have actually got enough applications now, and they're looking to see how can they do more of the things they need to run their business in the same place. So we've been looking at this idea of this kind of prime system from a financial management point of view, where actually there's some businesses who the prime system they're going to use to run their business will be their financial management application. So like the product we've got called Sage Intacct, which serves kind of medium-sized businesses, small kind of ERP. So we want to make sure that as part of Sage Intacct, we're connecting as many things into Sage Intacct that a business would need to run their business. So how can they take payments in? How can it reconcile to their ledger? How can they streamline their AP process? How can they pay their suppliers? How can they have access to lending? How can they have access to savings opportunities? All these kind of financial management workflows. But also at the same time, we know a lot of smaller businesses, actually, they're looking to run their business through their business banking application, through their e-commerce store, through their point of sale application. So we've also embedded our capabilities so they could show up in those different applications as well. So we want to meet the customer where they are, because what customers are telling us, what accountants are telling us, what the market is telling us is that customers don't want any more apps. They want as many things in the same place. And, the trend of these kind of super apps is what we're really seeing, these super platforms where everything's in one place, the Uber example, and there's plenty others. That's what customers are demanding. And we're here to kind of serve the customers wherever they want to do their accounting and financial management capabilities. We're going to supply either the APIs or the software for them to go and do that.
Okay, so it's as much about knowing the services they want and need rather than, overwhelming them with too many offerings or getting to that saturation point where you're offering something they that they have no use for?
Yeah, I think you've got to be really careful. And I think when you do run a business, there's some things that naturally kind of go together. So it's no coincidence that we've grown up as a business doing accounting, financial management, payroll, and HR. Those things naturally kind of go together.
Yeah.
And then when you look at those financial workflows, of course, things around payments and banking services, lending, savings, again, naturally go together. And on the periphery of that horizon, there's kind of other things where you start to think about insurance and a whole bunch of other things. But actually, there is just some pieces which it wouldn't make any sense to kind of, link in terms of there's kind of various examples out there. But it's really for us all about speaking to our customers, understanding the workflows that fit together for them, and making sure we can have them integrated as best as possible so they get a seamless experience and actually ultimately save time so they can focus on what they went into business for, which is running their business. Because no one went into business to pay their taxes. No one went into business to, run a payroll. They went into business to fix cars, to make floral displays, whatever it might be is their business that they run.
Great. Well, I know in the intro I referenced that sort of buying your way to success is not what works in building an effective ecosystem, in your opinion. Can you tell me a bit about that and what the alternative is then?
Yeah, so I think it's for us at Sage, it's really important about understanding what we're the experts in and what we're not the experts in. And of course, there is kind of like very kind of close kind of synergies between some of these financial management workflows. But there's certain things that as a business we've decided aren't part of our kind of core strategy, and things around kind of payments and the movement of money. As much as we manage that kind of financial workflow, what we don't want to be is a kind of payments provider. So we're looking to see how do we find the expert partners in the industry who can provide those capabilities, who can embed themselves in our platform without us having to actually take on the responsibility of being a regulated payments entity, becoming the experts in that domain. It's all about how do you find the right partners from our perspective who can provide those capabilities, make sure the customers get a seamless experience, and obviously help us kind of grow and support those customers as part of our business.
And so then how do you approach your third-party ecosystem at Sage? And you mentioned, those providers, it's really important in choosing those. So tell us a bit about that process. How do you find the right partners?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And I think there's a lot of it comes down to trust and reputation and brand. So the culture that we've got at Sage is really important to the way we've grown up as a business and the way that we operate. So we're always looking for partners who can really match our culture, which is, driven around being bold, having a great ambition, but also being very human. We're a very human company. We're kind of like... we have this phrase in Newcastle where we say people are canny to say that people are really friendly. And that's really the approach that we've got within Sage as a global company. We want to be human-led, but also be really bold in our ambitions. So we look for that in our partnerships, first of all. How do we work with like-minded people, like-minded companies? But it's also really important, especially when you're moving people's money, when you're providing lending capabilities, the trust and compliance has to be there. So we need to make sure when I'm looking for partnerships, I need to understand, is this a reputable company? Can we trust them if we're going to have, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of joint customers? How can we make sure there's that same level of trust that a customer has in Sage with one of the partners that we choose? So we're certainly very selective about who we work with. And we've got a kind of strict process of how we go through and choose those suppliers. But thus far, we've got some amazing suppliers in our ecosystem who are providing exactly what we need for our customers, which proves the time that we put into selecting those partners is worthwhile because of what it delivers back to our customers.
Yeah, and then I guess, do those partnerships, are they fairly long term? Do you end up partnering for quite a while with those partners?
Yeah, so I think the longevity is something that we also look at, is like how sustainable can this relationship be? Because again, what we want to provide to our customers is a seamless solution. And what we don't want is to have them be chopping and changing different integrations, different user experiences. So the longevity of those partners is very important. So we're always thinking, how does this help in the long term? And part of the approach to that is also making sure from a technical perspective, making sure from a thought leadership perspective, that the partners who we're working with understand where we're going, where we see the future, so that we can keep pace with each other in terms of what we're trying to build together.
Well, look, we mentioned AI earlier. So how are you thinking about AI then at the moment within your third-party ecosystem?
So I think AI within the third-party ecosystem is really, really interesting because obviously at Sage, we've got our own kind of AI built into our product. We actually have for kind of many years before it kind of got all the hype. We've got things around AI auto categorization of transactions. We also have an anomaly detection service within the general ledger, which is AI, but we never really promoted it as AI kind of before. But when it comes to the kind of third parties, one of the most important things is how can the data that we have within our system be effectively used by some of those third parties. So we just last week announced our kind of AI developer program at Sage, which is making sure third parties can come and integrate correctly with us, so that as they're launching AI agents, data can be used safely and effectively on behalf of customers. But the thing that I'm always looking for is beyond the hype is how can we find real solutions for customers? Because what we're seeing in the market is a lot of noise, a lot of PR at the moment, but it's really about what are the tangible things that are going to make a difference for those businesses. And that's the real, I think that's the real focus for us, is not getting drawn into the hype that's happening in the market, but actually evaluating what can change a business in terms of their productivity, in terms of things like making sure they're getting paid on time. Real outcomes is really what we're looking at, beyond the kind of, even some of the great technical work that's going on. Does that actually change something for a business, yes or no? Yeah,
it's interesting you say you have actually been using AI for a while now, but it's just suddenly there is this hype and this focus on it. So is it important to take that step back and make sure you're not just using technology for technology's sake?
Yeah, absolutely. But I think that's always been the case. You know what I mean? I think it's always been, there's so many great things you can do technically, but it's always about how do you balance that in terms of what's the customer desire or the customer need. And sometimes the customer doesn't know that they might need something, or don't kind of work that out for themselves. But it's like, will this make a difference for the customer? Then about finding the right technical solution for that. And then ultimately, how does that make sure, you know, from a commercial perspective, that makes sense as well, both for the customer and for us as a business. So there's a real balance to be had there between the customer desirability, what this means commercially, and then the technical solution that you provide for that. And as much as, you know, there's so much opportunity for AI, it's not the only answer. And actually, sometimes we find that simple workflow automation, which really doesn't have any AI in, can be as or more effective than, you know, the latest and greatest technology. And we even see that in the industry. There's still a lot of customers who use tools that were built, you know, at 15, 20 years ago, which are still very effective for them. They don't need the AI to go and enhance their business where they are today.
Yeah, okay. Well, look, alongside embedded services, there's also this growing trend for embedded payments. So how can embedded payments go beyond being just another feature, which I guess we've already talked about, you know, adding features to apps and platforms, and actually how can you use it as a vehicle for growth?
So I think embedded payments is extremely important for businesses. And again, coming back to the customer, one of the things that we hear all the time from speaking to customers, but also research that we do in the market, is cash flow and getting paid is always up there as one of the biggest pain points for businesses. So being able to create solutions within our product that help embed those payment workflows so that our customers can get paid on time or faster, so that's money coming into their business. Chasing up late payments is extremely important, but also making sure that payment reconciles to the ledger, which is the capability that we align to, that we provide, making sure people know what their tax bill is going to be, they're understanding their cash flow. These are all really, really important things. So having that capability embedded takes out the manual reconciliation that's needed, which can sometimes lead to errors, or sometimes can lead to delays in decision making. So it's all about keeping those businesses afloat first and foremost, but secondly, how do they then plan for the future?
Yeah, of course. You know, we hear so often, don't we, about how many small and medium-sized businesses, you know, have those cash flow issues. So this is an ongoing pain point, and obviously it's something that you at Sage are trying to kind of address directly, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think we see this because of the research, because we speak to small and medium businesses and the accountants who support them on a regular basis. We know this is a pain point for them. And it's like, how can we help those small and medium businesses stay in business first and foremost, but also ultimately try and grow, because the backbone of the economies that we operate in, and actually if small and medium businesses thrive, then the whole country thrives. So we feel a responsibility to really help them manage their businesses in the most effective way that they can.
Again, I guess it comes back to that idea that people start businesses because they want to do the thing they're passionate about, not because they necessarily knew anything about payments, invoicing, that side of running a business, right? So I guess that's where you come in and you kind of provide that support.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think you're right. So the first thing that someone does when they start a business is they need a way to get paid. Then they tend to need to store that money somewhere. And then suddenly they need to have suppliers that they pay. And it's not until they probably get beyond that they start thinking about, well, actually, what does my cash flow look like? Can I afford to invest? Can I afford to use the suppliers that they've got? Which is when they tend to look for financial management software to help them kind of manage that business. But we do see that as a responsibility that, we've got a huge amount of data that we can support businesses with. And if we can automate those workflows, get money into their business faster, help them pay their bills in a more effective way, that's only going to help them as businesses. So it's a really important part of our support we give for businesses is actually that movement of money is critical and doing that in the most effective way.
Well, sticking with the kind of payments piece then, we've seen here in the UK that open banking adoption has been on the rise ever since it was implemented back in sort of 2018. And we've got some exciting developments coming down the line with variable recurring payments being one. Those are hopefully tipped to accelerate broader adoption of open banking. What excites you the most about open banking, and what do you think it will bring, for your customers?
Yeah, so I think we've seen great adoption from an open banking perspective. Customers talk about it with us all the time in terms of being a really positive thing. Like we see this from a consumer lens as well. But the thing that excites me is actually what could be perceived as kind of barriers is the opportunity that comes with the success that we've seen. We think often when initiatives like this come in place, there's a risk that they kind of stagnate and remain kind of like as they are. But when we look at this, that we think there's huge opportunities in terms of not only the kind of variable recurring payments, but also looking at the size of transactions that could happen. There's a world that we see in the future where imagine we could do much bigger size transactions to help people with paying their payroll through open banking, for example, in terms of the efficiency, the productivity they would get from that, and the certainty around being able to use those services. So we're certainly very excited about what it could bring, but also we know there's challenges along the way to make sure that there's continued progression to really kind of support customers. But I think it's an absolutely fantastic thing because it helps small businesses, which is the whole reason why we're in business.
Yeah, of course. How far away are we from something like those services you mentioned regarding payroll and that kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's difficult to put a timeline on, but I know that we've got a team who are working really closely with the different organizations to try and tell the story about how that would help small and medium businesses. And I always have a positive mindset that it sometimes can only take one small thing to see that progression. So we'll continue telling the story on behalf of small and medium businesses, and I'm sure that in the not too distant future that's going to be a reality that we can help support those in the industry with.
I'll watch this space then.
Definitely.
Well, we're recording this here in London today, but I know Sage's main office or headquarters, as you've mentioned, is located in Newcastle. GoCardless also recently opened an office in Leeds. So what excites you about this development that we're seeing of tech hubs outside of London?
Yeah, so I think, as you said, Sage was kind of born and bred in Newcastle, which is my hometown, which gives me a huge amount of pride. And even though we've been in business 44 years and expanded internationally, we've always been headquartered in Newcastle. And I know that I'm biased because it's a fantastic city, but, access to talent is great. The opportunity to build a foundation outside of London is something that we're hugely proud of. But we've got kind of hubs here in London as well, and in Atlanta and a lot of other places around the world. So there's really a local element to kind of everything that we do. And I don't think it's a case of kind of what's better or worse about the different locations. I actually think it's our variability to serve customers in the local markets that we're in and be really proud and show that we can, you can develop a multinational business out of a city like Newcastle is something that we're extremely proud of. But I think it's all about flexibility. It's not choosing one location or the other. It's about how do you make sure you get the best of the different locations that are available, because of course there's a lot happening in London, but equally up in Newcastle, the access to talent we've got, the links with the universities, our heritage there is something that's very, very important to us.
Yeah, absolutely. You can tell it really, really excites you, and obviously there's an element of pride there, of course. And maybe we'll see, more hubs opened by various FinTechs, throughout the UK, and which will be really exciting.
Yeah, and I think it is about, I tell this story a lot in terms of when, speaking at certain events or, when we go into schools and things like that. It just, the Sage story is great because it shows that you don't have to be in one of the biggest commercial hubs in the world to be successful. You can actually be born and bred in, a fabulous city, which, it's a little bit colder than sometimes it is in London or other places, but it just shows you can achieve anything, and the location actually isn't a deciding factor in terms of the fate of your business.
Well, look, I want to find out from you what part customer choice plays in an ecosystem, and do you think there's such a thing actually as too much choice?
So I think customer choice is very important, and often because the needs of businesses can vary greatly. We do like lump millions of businesses into this small and medium bracket,
Yeah.
but actually the industries that they work within, the sub-industries, the industry verticals, as we call them, can be very different. And what you'll find is in some areas, the requirement for recurring payments can be very high, but actually in other areas to be paid on invoice is high. In other areas, you might have a point of sale business. So it's really about how do we, first of all, make sure that we're supporting businesses regardless how they're getting paid and how they need to pay their suppliers, firstly. But then also that customer choice is important. But I think the question of too much choice, I think if it's a fully open market, often it can be very difficult for customers to know what to choose, especially if it isn't their domain. So what really we try and do at Sage is make sure we've got the kind of trusted partners that we work with, but also making sure the key influencers of small and medium businesses who tend to be accountants, actually we work with them to make sure that they're informed about the choices that are available and the different integrations that we've got, so they can advise the businesses on the most effective way for them to kind of run their business, bring payments in, whatever it might be. So there's an important relationship there with the influencers and advisors of those businesses, as well as creating that what I would call limited choice in terms of the recommended people who we work with who integrate really well with our software, and then the lens of what industry do you play in, because that's really going to be the thing that's probably going to define the best way and the best kind of partner to work with.
So how do you approach payment providers and in terms of, offering different payment methods? What's your approach there?
So I think our approach is we want to make sure that customers can get paid in as many ways as possible, because we do know that is that variability. You could have a business who operates in multiple ways. So you might have someone who kind of runs like an art collective, and on a weekend they're going to kind of trade shows where they've got a point of sale terminal, they've got tap to pay, they need to be able to be paid that way. But actually they might be during the week, they might be doing a commission where they're going to be getting paid on invoice. But then also they might then have kind of, a regular stream of business where they're, creating a product and sending it on. So there's a kind of recurring payment that needs to happen. So it is about that creating as many ways as possible. Some businesses will have a kind of single way that they bring money into their business. Others will have multiple ways. And we don't want to penalize any business who uses our software to not be able to have that integration, to be able to have that ability to chase up those payments and obviously have it reconciled back to the general ledger software that we provide.
So it's all about flexibility, I guess.
Absolutely. And I think what we see as well, what we hear from businesses, and this is the most important thing, is listening to your end customers and understanding them, is business models change. So again, I go back to this art collective because it's a business that I've met in Newcastle who have kind of told me about how they operate their business before the pandemic. They used to get a lot of their business through a lot of face-to-face activities, a lot of kind of events that used to run. And actually a lot of things happened in kind of cash or check. Remember those? Kind of back in the day. But then the pandemic happened, everything went online, and suddenly actually it's an e-commerce business now. Things happen through a digital store, through an Etsy account, through Instagram, through TikTok. And then obviously as the world's come back out of the pandemic, it's then transitioned again to be a more hybrid. So it's really about the flexibility is important for businesses, because businesses change all the time. And with the advancements in technology and AI, it's going to change again in terms of the way those businesses operate day to day. So we want to provide that flexibility to support them regardless of the way that they run their business.
So we've talked a bit about open banking and some of the opportunities there for in terms of offering new services potentially and products to businesses. But do you actually think there's a lack of awareness about open banking among SMEs?
I think there is. And I think there's a lack of awareness in a lot of things, because again, when you're a small and medium business, if you've got the particular thing which you're, the product that you provide, the service you provide, that's actually your focus and that's actually your passion. So if you're a mechanic, you're thinking about actually how am I going to, I imagine they're thinking about how am I going to service electric cars now versus, I don't know anything about mechanics, but, versus a petrol or a diesel engine. So it's actually the things that we take for granted, those of us who are in FinTech, in payments, in accounting and financials, and we think about day to day, that's not what businesses are thinking about. I think it's very important for us to, as a business, educate within our products, but also help the education of the influence of those small and medium businesses to understand, whether it be accountants or some of the resellers that we've got in our ecosystem, to be able to educate them through that. Because I know, again, making touch digital legislation, which is, coming to the UK in April of 2026, there's so many businesses who aren't aware of that legislation, and we're doing our job to make sure they are aware of what they're going to need to do. And I think the same thing for open banking, there isn't that awareness, and unfortunately there's not that same compliance event which is going to drive that. So we've got an ongoing duty to make sure we're sharing as much as possible and talking about it to make as many businesses aware about the opportunities that exist.
So, Gordon, we're going to play a game of higher or lower, which you may remember there was obviously a TV version many years ago. So I'm going to give you a sort of payment fact or statistic, follow it up with another one, and you have to say if that is higher or lower than the first. Gosh. Very simple.
Here we go.
But yeah, absolutely. So first of all, we're going to talk about card processing fees versus card fraud. So worldwide payment card fraud losses reached approximately $33.83 billion in 2023. Is that higher or lower than the card processing fees paid by US businesses alone in 2023?
So I think it's lower.
And why do you think that?
I just think in terms of the levels of fraud are obviously really high, but I think because of the size of kind of the economy in the US, I just think it's that's the way it's going to flow. So you are correct, and in fact, it is much lower. So US businesses paid over $172 billion in card processing fees alone in 2023. Wow, that's actually an all-time high, and it highlights it's a substantial cost really of accepting card payments for merchants in the US. The next one is number of available apps. So as of 2025, there are 2.03 million apps now available in the App Store. Is that higher or lower than the number of apps available in the Google Play Store? That is a lot of apps. And we just spoke before about how businesses have got too many apps. And I think the fact there's 2 million available apps tells us that actually proves your point. We could do more of that together, couldn't we? So I think there's more. I think there's probably slightly more in the Apple App Store, I would think. Any particular theory behind that, or? Maybe because I'm an Apple user and there's so many. I don't know. There's no logic behind that other than pure guesswork. Pure guess, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, it's lower. So there are 2.10 million apps available in the Google Play Store. Similar, but slightly higher for Google Play, as it turns out. So finally, Gordon, we've got a fairly new segment here on the podcast where I'd like you to give me your most controversial take on payments or the payments industry, and I'll tell you whether I agree or not. So what is your hot take? So I think my hot take is I think there's a substantial change happening in the industry where kind of payments meets accounting and financial management. I think what I'm seeing, what we're seeing at Sage is that banks are suddenly getting into the accounting market, and obviously one of the big things that banks do is take and receive payments for businesses. Mm-hmm. And we see this substantial shift happening. That's so much hype in the market about AI, but actually what we're really seeing is the dynamics about who are being competitors in those different markets are really kind of getting blurred between payments, fintech, and accounting, financial management, and banking. And I think we're going to see a tidal wave of banks and fintechs providing capabilities that we would typically provide from Sage. And part of our approach to that is actually to meet those organizations with our capabilities. So rather than having to build their own or buy their own, again, from an open ecosystem perspective, we're going to go and be the supplier of those capabilities so that as the experts in the industry, we can still support those businesses. But I think we're going to see a substantial change about the way businesses want to operate, especially those much smaller businesses. I think they're going to want to do more and more of those payment capabilities, of accounting and financial management in their applications. And I think we're going to see a real change in terms of the way the industry operates. That's my hot take. Keen to hear your view on that. Well, that's really interesting. So are you saying that it's a change that's come about because of demand, essentially, or what else is potentially behind it? No, I think it's 100% customer demand. Right. I think it's customers they're seeing that they have a lot of information in their business banking application. Yeah. And I think they're seeing actually how can I do more from there. And I think then there's also a push from especially the challenger banks, which are emerging, who are really kind of, bringing those capabilities to the market, either through partnerships or kind of, things that they're kind of building within their ecosystems. then we're seeing a response from some of the traditional banks in the market looking to provide that as well. And I think the combination of those factors will see this dynamic change in terms of, especially like I said, those smaller businesses will be able to do some of those more kind of basic capabilities within that one application.
Well, I have to say, it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. At Sage, is that something that, do you embrace shifts like this? I mean, I guess it's something that as you say, you've been in business for a long time as Sage, so you've navigated these kind of shifts before, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And again, our approach has been an open ecosystem. So when we see these kind of changes, rather than trying to resist it, where they're thinking, how do we support it? So we've created a whole new business unit called Sage Embedded Services, which I actually lead. And our job is to make sure we provide in our capabilities, whether it's accounting, financial management, payroll, expense management, to different organizations so they can support their customers. So for us, we want to support a customer whether they're using one of our systems and we're integrating other fintech applications in to support them, or if they choose to use that through their kind of bank or another provider where they're also to support them from that perspective. Because again, it's all about the customer. So we'll meet them wherever they want to have their accounting, financial management, payroll capabilities.
Yeah, well, okay, that's a great hot take. And I'm kind of fascinated to see that play out. I'm going to take your word for it that that's happening, because you know small and medium-sized businesses better than I ever could. So yeah, thank you so much, Gordon. Great to have you on the podcast. Great to hear your insights as well, which are invaluable.
Thank you for having me.
You can look out for all new episodes of Settling Up with GoCardless coming out on Spotify and on YouTube. But until next time, I hope that settles things.